I destroyed a brewery. Nearly 20 years ago, I was a brewer at a brew pub. The owner was a complete lunatic and utter a-hole. Before I was hired, he had already purchased the brewery equipment used from a closed microbrewery. Problem is, it was literally 4 times larger than it needed to be for the size of the place. And to top it off, he was selling big 3 beers too. And it was a Pugsley system. Brewers will know. But I made it work, even got the stupid Ringwald yeast to behave. But I only needed to brew about 3 or 4 times a month. I've worked at places where we brewed that much a week, so I wasn't needed anywhere near the 40 hours a week. And I was salaried. So he decided I needed to work night manager at least 2 hours a week to fill out my hours. That was fine, it was an easy gig. After our first year, he advertised a huge anniversary event with specials on food and drink. Food specials, commercial beer specials, and didn't even mention that we made our own, much less put anything special in it. Idiot. Not too long after, I got my first vacation in over a year, and he was mad at me for insisting. But life was stressful, not least of which because my mom was in hospice, stage 4 cancer. But her condition was such that she said my wife and I should go, she'll be fine. So we went camping for a week. The day before our trip was about to end, we got word she had died 2 days earlier. My family didn't know how to reach us, only she did. We rushed home, 6-hour drive, and on the way, I called my boss and told him what happened, and that I probably would not be in on Monday as planned. This was Saturday. I found out later from a bartender that he later complained at the chef that I was probably going to want more time off. I did in fact take Monday off, but I went in on Tuesday to do my night manager shift. Now my mom's wishes were to be cremated with no embalming, so by the time I got home, she was already cremated. So the memorial service was planned for 2 weeks later, right before the Labor Day weekend. There was to be a memorial service Thursday and the interment for the family Friday. So I planned and made sure that the servers were full and I wouldn't need to brew for at least a week. That Wednesday, the boss comes in and tells me he wants me to work night shift on Thursday and Friday. Normally I did Tuesday and Wednesday nights to make up for the time off I'd taken to help my dad out. He wasn't handling it well. He wanted me to come in after my mom's funeral. I flatly refused, at which point he said fine, but I'd have to work a double shift Saturday then. I nearly lost it. I walked away, and after I cooled off, I went back and told him I was no longer going to do the manager shift, and that I wanted to switch to hourly for brewery work only. He was angry, but stuck. He needed me in the brewery. Things started calming down, but after a few weeks, I noticed my paychecks were for less than I anticipated. I hadn't been tracking my clock in, clock out very closely, because prior to this, I only clocked in and out, so I was logged in to do manager functions. But I happened to have a couple slips in my wallet, and because I still had manager access, discovered he had been altering my hours, eventually cheating me out of around 20 hours of work in just 6 weeks. And that's when I hatched my plan. I was done with this a-hole. Remember that ringwood yeast? Well, in a brewery, you harvest yeast from a fermenting batch to use to brew a later one. And since we were slow, it often had to be stored for a while before it got used. But you had to use it within 30 days, or it goes sour and starts dying. Normally, I would take other steps to ensure it stayed clean and healthy, but not on the last batch I harvested. It just went into the cold room and stayed there. I stopped going in very often, just logging tank levels to make sure nothing ran out and made him suspicious. I would even go in to make sure he wasn't in that day and later message him that I'd brewed. I hadn't, and waited. On day 45, after I got the check for the last hours I worked, I overnighted my keys in with a resignation letter. He called me the next day screaming. I told him I knew what he'd done and I wouldn't be back. I don't know what he looked like when he went into the empty brewery cell and discovered he had empty fermenters, nearly empty serving tanks, dead yeast, and almost no grain. Pity, really. After that, he tried to hire my former assistant, who was working at another brew pub by then, because the a-hole had forced me to fire him to save money. He laughed at him. He then apparently got the son of one of the brewers at a nearby brew pub, which he had originally been a part of, to brew for him. But he had to fire him because the guy kept getting caught drunk down in the cellar. So he tried doing it, and I heard they stopped brewing entirely indefinitely. About a year after I left, he folded. Staff showed up one morning to padlock doors. Drove through there a few years back. Not only gone, but the building was torn down. I felt like stopping to sow the ground with salt, but I was in a hurry.